Hi everyone, welcome back to another mental health mini. I'm back doing this one thanks to my colleague Nick for running the last one when I wasn't available. Today I'm joined by mental health advocate and mental health survivor John Durrant. Hi John, welcome.
Hi, David.
So John runs, is it Living Mental Health? Your website,
Yeah,
sorry, yes. So John runs a website called Living Mental Health where he blogs and talks about his experiences, and he does podcasts, and he talks about his experiences and other people's as well, kind of a little bit like we do, to be honest. John contacted me saying he'd love to do one of these, and I'm always open to doing one of these and talking to as many people as possible, and hopefully helping as many people as possible as well. So as I always say, let's jump straight in. And John, so first of all, first question, tell us about your experiences with mental health.
well, I didn't know, but I probably got my first inkling that something wasn't right when I was about 12 years old. Maybe if I was to look into it a little bit more deeper, maybe even younger than that. Um, but at first, my first inkling was I was hearing voices, and I all it was John, John, John. And I'd go downstairs because I'd be upstairs and I'd go, what's the matter? What are you calling me for? Oh, we haven't called you. Honestly, John, we haven't called you. So I'd go back upstairs and I'm thinking, I've heard that clear as day, someone calling my name. Didn't think nothing of it. And I just thought I was being stupid and maybe just hearing things, but not nothing at a serious level. So I left it, but it kept happening and it kept happening. So I went to the doctors, basically got laughed at and not really got much help. Um, and then in 2006, I was arrested on an affray. Um, and you get asked what mental health conditions you got. And this is where my story gets a little bit frustrating. I said, I just had a mental health assessment this week and I was diagnosed with borderline schizophrenia. And I said, so I've told you that's what that's what he told me in the assessment. And I said the people that are pressing charges will back the story up if you need them to. And about half an hour later, one of the custody sergeants come back and says, John, why are you lying about your mental health for? They're telling us you haven't got that. I said, I was in the meeting this week. I said, literally this week, I've just had the meeting and that's what he told me I'd got. I said, I'm not lying to you. I said, ring up the people that are pressing charges on me. They sat in the same room as me. I said, and they will verify my story that what I'm telling you is true. I said, I'm not lying. I said, I'm in enough trouble as it is. I'm not going to lie about this. And with that, he said, okay, I'll go and verify it and I'll come back and see you. And he come back and he went, John, he went, you're not lying, mate. He says, the people that are pressing charges are backing your story 100%. That's what you were told. So I said, all right, not a problem. Where do we go from here? He said, not, there isn't really much that the police can do, but we'll send a letter to your GP just saying things need to be clarified. Well, nothing. I was left to my own devices. I wasn't picked up by anyone or wasn't treated for anything. So I was left to my own devices. And in the meanwhile, I'd had little visits into services, different services in and around the town that are helping young people with their mental health. But 2017 and 2018, I started to took a dive in my mental health. And 2018, I was doing some boxing pads with a friend and I was in a local community centre and my phone had died and I couldn't ring my partner to tell her I was on my way home. But something clicked inside my head and I started to cry, but I didn't want to cry in front of my friend. I just know I needed to get out of this building and get home as quick as I could. And be it told, I know now, I was having a psychotic episode. I was seeing myself, clear images and clear voices in my head, that I was going to go and harm one of my family members who I'm really close to. I could see how I was going to do it and everything. Well, it's about a 5 minute walk to get home, and I took all the alleyways to get there because I didn't want people seeing me in tears and distressed. I got home and I burst into tears again, and I said to my partner, once I could talk, I need help. And my partner, she got me an out and hours appointment for an on-call doctor. The doctor called me in, and I turned around to my partner and I said, "This isn't going to be successful." She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "That's one of the doctors that never listened to me when I was a kid." Well, we were in the appointment, and I was sort of like, "Yeah, he's calming me down. It's good." I actually come out of that appointment feeling like I'd been listened to, and I wanted to shake the doctor's hand for that. So it was then I had a 6 week wait to get seen by the mental health team. But the Monday after the Sunday, because this happened on a Sunday, I was still quite high up anxiousness, and I was scared still. And I went to I went to the doctors and managed to get an appointment with the nurse practitioner. Well, I had a really good relationship with the nurse practitioner, and the nurse practitioner was awesome. She was absolutely brilliant. And I walked in her room, and her exact words were to me, "John, you look like shit. What's up with you?" And that didn't calm me right down, but it brought me back down to actually someone's going to listen to me again. So I need to get everything I can get out. So I told her. She rang the crisis team and said the crisis team needed to see me. They rang me back, and within an hour, I was up at the crisis team seeing the crisis team. But my only problem was because I could talk to them and I was looking them in the eye. They left me with my part. They said my partner was safe. My partner's not mental health trained. So should I have been sectioned or shouldn't I have been sectioned is the question. That's a hard one. But then I had 6 weeks later, I had my assessment, and I said to the bloke doing my assessment, "I've been diagnosed with borderline schizophrenia." He said, "No, you haven't." I said, "That's what I was diagnosed with." And I told him what I just told you about with the police. He goes, "John, you haven't." He said, your diagnosis is emotional unstable personality disorder with psychotic episodes and compulsive components. So if you want me to spend your money in your bank cards, just send it my way because I'm quite happy to spend your money for you, especially with that top you've got on, David. Um, but yeah, so I got sent away with my partner, and they were try until I saw a psychiatrist. They kept My GP wouldn't keep changing my meds because he said I'm not trained. He said I need a trained profession to do it. Now I've been on a mixture of meds. Some worked for a little while, some didn't. But I got put on one medication, and I put 2 stone on in 1 month because people that smoke weed have always told me you get munchies. Well, this tablet, you don't need weed. You just need this tablet to gain weight. I was doing 3 or 4 bowls of cereal plus food, plus bread, toast, bread by itself, just bread and butter. I done 16 loaves of bread in 1 week because of this one tablet. And then it was just I got put onto another tablet, and my missus had to sleep with her eye open because I'm a big friendly giant. But this one tablet made me quite aggressive, and I got swore down this tablet would be a life changer. Yeah, it was, but for the wrong reasons. So we had to get myself off of that. Touch wood, touch my computer table on the desk next to me, that I've been on some meds now for probably the last 2 to 3 years, and they seem to have worked. I sometimes need the dosage mixed round a little bit, but with that seems to have helped me, especially with the voices I hear. So that's helped. But I'm also since then, since seeing a psychiatrist who wasn't much help, to be fair, um, I've got involved with projects like all kinds of different projects. I've been involved with the Restoration Trust. There was a project at Borough Castle for 2 years, and now we've run some money to keep the project going for a little bit longer. Um, I now volunteer for a local charity called Live Loud for Danny. Sue Wilgoss lost her son to suicide. Um, and then I help out there. I help out with doing lived experience talks for Access. I blog, I podcast, but all that I'm doing is like a little bit of self therapy because
Yeah.
I've never, my psychiatrist hasn't given me any therapy. I had CBT, that didn't work for me. I'm currently waiting to get DBT because for people with personality disorders, that's meant to be a phenomenal piece of therapy. That is. Um, but yeah, that's sort of me in a nutshell.
Fair enough. Obviously, thanks for going into all that stuff because you said a number of things that I actually want to come back to.
Go for it.
And people that watch these will know that I can sometimes jump back to things people have said, but particularly two things. I think maybe third, but one thing I want to touch on, and it's not, I don't necessarily have an opinion on this, and I don't know whether anyone else does. But the first thing you mentioned was about how the first time you remember having anything to do with this was when you were 12 and you were essentially dismissed, or
Yeah.
that your experience of this was being dismissed. Now, I can't say, and I don't have statistics to say one way or the other, but it does feel like when you hear these things that young kids who are kind of going through puberty or teenagers do have these issues, and it feels like we don't always listen to them.
Yes.
Now, I accept there are things you have to be wary of, hormones and stuff like that, and I apologize to anyone if I'm getting this wrong. I'm by no means an expert, but just from an observational point of view, you have to be a bit careful. Is it something more serious or is it just a mood swing? And you have to pick that out, and it can be very difficult, which is why we have people that know what they're doing. But it does feel like we don't always listen to kids, or we dismiss them on the basis of it being hormones when actually it could be something more serious.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know where to start with that, but I'm not in that field. But so that is one thing I wanted to pick up on in terms of, do you remember how you felt at the time?
Yeah. When it first happened, I probably just, like you said, dismissed it a little bit and thought, no, I might have just thought I said John or something like that. But when it kept happening and no one was like listening to me, I felt stupid.
It's probably a good way of putting it, which probably then increases the anxiety and the feelings and
Yeah.
actually compounds the situation.
It's like I I know myself, I was getting a little bit paranoid because I wasn't being listened to, but I was living hearing these voices. And it was like, well, you're meant to help me. And the only people that wanted to help me at the time, when I used to need help and it had got too much for me, I used to try to commit suicide. And the people that were willing to help me were the police. And it shouldn't be down to them.
No, the police have enough to do without having, and there are things that the police have to get involved with when it comes to
Yeah.
situations like this. But and it kind of brings me on to another point that you raised. And if there is a positive in all of that, this is kind of edging towards that. And it was the nurse practitioner you mentioned, who you walked in and she just looked at you and went, "You don't look right."
Yeah.
And having someone who, in this case, is in a position of authority, understand and accept that there's something not right makes a massive difference. I know that myself.
Yeah.
I've been through that. Obviously, you've lived through that experience, and many others have, and it's about having that. If you're lucky enough to have that one person that is able to command others to help you because they're in a position of authority, that's when things really start to move. So my other thing is, like, what was the feeling when she started? She sounds like she kick-started a bit of a process, and what was your feeling then? Was it relief? Was it
I
fear
was
still?
I was fearful because I knew there was a chance because the nurse practitioner did say that they could section you, they might not, depending on your needs. But I was I'm starting to get some help. It's starting the ball moving. It's it's getting to the way that I know I need help because I'm struggling big time, but without the nurse practitioner knowing that I was struggling and with what had happened the day before, I don't think if I don't think what happened the day before would have got any further.
Yeah.
So I think I needed the psychotic break, and that's what my psychiatrist called it. You had a psychotic break. Um, that's what you needed to get the ball moving. So I'm still in services now. I'm waiting for therapy, but it's it's a relief that it was not. I get scared of what happened to me, and I haven't been back in that building since. I go past it, but I haven't built up the courage to go back into that building.
Yeah. I for reasons I won't go into, I fully appreciate and understand that.
Yeah,
Uh, so kind of, as you said, that's you in a nutshell. That's your experiences. What I want to know now, if you'll indulge me, is on a day-to-day basis, when you wake up in the morning, when you go to bed, how you deal with your day. Obviously, these are still things you're living through. You mentioned you're on medication. How do you cope? How do you try and keep yourself motivated? How do you try and, like, how do you spot signs that might be there that say, okay, I need to calm down, or this is a I need to get help moment? How do you go about your day in understanding those things?
well, I'll talk you. In June, I had a dip in my mental health. It wasn't suicidal. I wasn't that high in crisis,
And
but I
it
was.
is it is important to for people watching this that don't know. It isn't an on or off switch. It's not a case of
No,
you're absolutely fine or you're suicidal. I have absolute dips where I'm feeling low and I need to talk to my wife because I'm just not feeling happy. But nor am I going to attempt anything. It is
yeah,
a a a huge amount of levels in there. It isn't just on or off. So sorry to
no,
interrupt. Carry on.
no, that's fine, David. Um, I had a dip in mental health. I had a meeting and I talked a little bit about my story in the meeting, but I hadn't planned to speak about my meet. Like I hadn't planned to speak about my story. And I come off the call and I literally rang my missus up and said, "Look, I need to get to you now." I said, "I'm really anxious and I need to get to you." So she was with her friend. Her friend come and pick me up. I was messaging people to try and chill out. I was listening to music. I was just chatting, and I don't like talking at the best of times, but when I'm in that situation, I do. Um, my missus was distracting me. She was coming up with jokes to try and make me laugh and chill out, but by about 3 o'clock, it still hadn't gone, and nothing was working. So I rang up for Norfolk and Waveney. There's an option where you can ring 111 option 2 for the mental health team. And I rang that number, but because the mental health team where I'm under was still open, they told me to go there and come back after hours if I was still in crisis. So I went there. Oh, got a typical, yeah, I'll get the duty worker to ring you back. If So all I said was, if they don't bring me back by 5, can I ring 111 option 2? If you feel like you need to, I'm in a crisis. I'm going to need help. I can't get myself out of it. So the duty worker rung me back, and their option was to double my meds. That's not an option. I've been on that dose before, and I'm like a zombie. I get up at 7 in the morning, and then by 8:30, I'd be wanting to fall asleep on that dose of medication. I wouldn't be living a life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I then I then got in contact with a couple of mates that work at a crisis cafe in Galston, and got the number, rung them, and I spoke to someone there, and they made me feel at ease. They were going to bring me back later that day to have a chat with me to discuss things and get me through, like to put a plan in place. That come, and that got me back down a little bit more, starting to calm down, get back onto an even keel. And they booked me in to see him on the Friday. This was when I think it was the Queen Bank Holiday weekend, where we had Friday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday as the bank holiday.
Yeah.
And I went in and saw him, and we put a plan in place. Well, I then rang my doctor's surgery up and just said, look, I've been over here to discuss it. I need to come in and see a doctor. And I saw the doctor. Well, he was an old guy, so I thought this might not go too well. Not because he's old, but just because he might not be all up into mental health and stuff, because I don't get much training on mental health. And do you know what? It was one of the best doctors' experience I ever had. He took his time. You can tell he read his notes, like my notes about me. You can also see that he was worried about me, but he wasn't happy that they wanted to double my meds just because my anxiety was high. So he was like confirming to me that I'd done everything right and I'd put everything in place. So that was just the normal dip. That was just a dip. I haven't had a dip like that for a long while. But sometimes if I start hearing voices, or I start getting anxiety, or I start getting worried about something, I'll go wash up. I like to wash up in the afternoon with a couple of videos on. But if I'm anxious, I'll go wash up, put my YouTube on, and just music or a couple of content creators I like watching, and I'll listen to it on and watch it on there while washing up. Or I'll put music on, or I'll sit and watch the telly just to try and de-chill myself. And I might send out a couple of texts just to distract the brain. But if my partner's here and she can tell I'm listening to the voices, she'll go, John. I go, yes. She goes, you listening to your voices? I go, yes. She goes, are they telling you to make me a cup of tea? And people think we're weird when we do that, but it distracts me enough to get me out of listening to my voices. It's a great technique.
I think if it works, it is absolutely brilliant, and she should be commended on the ability to bring humour to that situation. I think that's fantastic.
She does that a lot with my mental health, and so does her family. It's they I don't. Yes, mental health is serious, but you can have for me. I like dealing with my mental health sometimes in a funny way.
I absolutely agree. Not in terms of my mental health necessarily. I mean, I do make jokes about these things when I feel the time is correct, but particularly where grief comes in, I deal with grief with humour. I have to apologise to people in advance, and I have to be careful. But different people deal with different things in different ways, and if it works for you and it isn't harming anyone else, there's no wrong way. So
that's like when I do talks, when I do my talks, or I've done talks, I'll come home, I'll get a glass of Pepsi Max, and for about an hour, I'll say to the partner, it went well, it went good, and stuff like that. But I just have to just bring myself back down because all the nerves and everything that was there beforehand are trying to escape my body with excitement and I feel so empowered and energetic that I've done this and felt that I might have got my story across and that might have helped someone. And it's just that just makes me feel like yes, and it's and I just have to take that hour and a half just to mellow back down and chill out.
And I agree, and that's the thing with this. So as people will know that watch this, and yourself, I run this with this account with a colleague of mine, Nick, and we're volunteers for it. We put in as much time and effort as our lives allow, and occasionally we need to do some downtime for ourselves. So if we're ever not posting, it's usually because we're on holiday or we just need a bit of a break. And I think that's the same for you.
Yeah,
But the whole point of these, and the same thing you do, is to try and help as many people as possible. And if it helps one person, it's worth it.
yeah,
Um, I've always said that I want to try and keep these short to keep people engaged. Obviously, we spoke about that before the call. So we've got a couple of minutes left. So first, last question of the ones I normally ask is, if have you got any advice for anyone watching that either may have been through your situation or someone who knows someone that's going through your situation? Have you got anything that you would like to say that you believe helps you and therefore may help others?
yeah. I am going to duck out of screen in a minute because I want to show you the writing behind me. I was tasked with a 7-day challenge. Now, I absolutely thought this was absolute cob's wallop when they told me, and it's a positive challenge. So, day one, get up, say something positive about yourself. Day two, and you can say it before you go to bed as well if you feel like you need to. Day two, get up, but on day two, you've got to say something different. And the same goes for day 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I, I did it, and I thought it was absolutely cold swallow. But I got someone mentioned to you, John, you're walking differently. You're not walking like you're slouched or anything. You're walking feel like you're proud. I said, oh, I never noticed. But that was within them 7 days of saying something positive to myself. And then I come up with this little quote: "It's not going to beat me. I'm going to beat it." And I
Affirmative
say
and
that,
positive.
yeah, I say that every morning and every night before I go to bed in my head, and that helps me get through the day. If you're
It,
struggling, reach out.
and that's what we always say. And it's interesting you talk about the positive things. So a previous counsellor of mine, when I was going through a particularly bad period, said, right, every day I want to say 3 positive things about yourself. And my wife took this a step further and said, yeah, you're going to do that, except you're going to do it standing in front of a mirror. And I tell you what, and I wasn't allowed to say the same things. And she has a great memory, and she used to remind me what I'd said. So, and I can tell you now, it's very difficult, but she kept doing it until she noticed that in myself, was feeling better. And it does work. So reiterating something positive about yourself is absolutely some brilliant advice, John. And in terms of talking out, yeah, that's what we always say. So
I'd have never thought about doing it in the mirror. That's interesting. I'm
it's
going to use
the
that for someone actually I know at the minute.
it's to do with the idea that you're saying it rather than just saying it out loud. You're actually saying it to yourself,
Yeah,
and supposedly, and I can vouch that for me this worked. Supposedly, it has more of an impact because it almost feels like someone else is saying it to you
yeah,
rather than yourself. So it's certainly worth a go if you haven't tried it. But I think even if that's too much for someone, you're absolutely right that the positive thinking and the positive statement about yourself and trying to think of as many different ones as possible, because whether you think it is or not, there is always something positive about you.
yeah, definitely.
So, um, so John, massive thanks for coming on and doing this.
Thank
Obviously,
you for having me.
I let you go with it, and you were very open with us, and I'm very grateful for that.
That's
So,
fine. Like I say, I don't want the fame. I just want something I say or do on a podcast with a guest or with yourselves or in a blog, if someone can take that one thing from it and turn it into a positive for them, then it's been a success. That's all I say.
Right. And so obviously, if you're watching us, you probably already do. But if you don't, you're welcome to follow our Twitter account that talks about this kind of stuff. It's Canaries Trust MH. John, you've got a Twitter account, haven't you, as well?
Yep.
What's the handle?
It's at Catblocks LWMH lowercase help. It stands for
LWMH
living
help.
with it stands for living with mental health.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, obviously give John a follow. He does things like this. He's got a website as well, which we mentioned at the start of the video. And obviously, following this, there'll also be some organisations and charities that help. You'll see their logos on the screen. But John, once again, thank you so much for doing this for us.
Not a problem. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent. And obviously, we'll keep in touch, and together, hopefully, we can help some people.
Too right.
All right. Take care, everyone.